You guys know the drill. Welcome everybody. Beautiful Friday outside. Um, oh yeah, it's the anniversary of MLK assassination in Memphis. So put questions in the chat. You know how it is. I do have a number of health updates and a little bit of a topic that we're going to cover. But I will be looking at the chat and answering any of your questions. So yeah, there's a little bit more news on cicada. Now there's a sort of an official statement that they really are concerned that vaccine may not work for this one. Of course, at the same time, they tell everybody go and get vaccinated. I find it really funny because like the statement is go get vaccinated if you haven't, but oh, by the way, vaccine may not work. That that strikes me as a little bit of a I don't know. I think a misguided approach. Anyway, it's not more severe. There are no new symptoms described. There hasn't been any that I have seen, any of the changes in the patterns. It's just that this is the most mutated form of the COVID previously known. That's why there's some fear about escaping of the vaccine. But I don't think that it's still an Omicron subvariant, so I don't think that our long-term immunity that has some basic memory to any COVID is going to be somehow negatively impacted by this one. So I presume I don't have any new changes to how I think about this from last week. They are seeing increase in numbers in several states. In Massachusetts and Florida have seen spikes. Not really here, not in the DMV area. I think we're flat. But again, it is expected that towards the summer we will have an uptick. So that's COVID updates. Now let's talk about a couple of different health related topics. So of course, tons of news from our government, from our MAHA. The first one, I think last week I mentioned briefly, but I want to discuss this a little bit more, and that's the changes in the food in a hospital. So the MAHA requires that every hospital in the country completely changes what they serve to patients and staff. Otherwise, they're losing all the funding and accreditation. They were all served warning in the country. And, is this a purely political statement and nothing will happen? How are they going to monitor tens and tens of thousands of hospitals? I have no clue how they will proceed with making sure that the new reverse pyramid, which we discussed some months ago when it came out, is going to be implemented in a hospital. I don't know. Obviously, their American Heart Association is positions themselves very strongly against new government recommendations. They refusing to acknowledge them, and they basically stating they're going to fight it and they will not. And they recommend their cardiology services not to adhere to the MAHA recommendations. So we're going to have an interesting political fight on top. We'll see how that plays out. We don't provide opinions about politics here, but I still think it's important to discuss this because we're all in some way going to be affected by it. So, I'm yet to see that anything in the hospital will change. Those of you who following me on the Facebook, you may have seen that I reposted Dr. Melinda's Ring comment on this topic, which I think is the best comment, and Devils is in detail how this is going to get implemented. We are going to be witnessing. So that's topic number one. Next topic is yesterday, or maybe the day before, I don't remember, they announced a big initiative of cleaning microplastics from water. And this one, I can be certain, but I give you 90+% chance it's a gimmick. Nothing's going to happen. Those of you who understand politics and what does it mean to filter the water in a country may kind of get an idea. And by the way, here's the link. If anybody care, here's an NPR link to what I'm talking about. So they assigned $144 million to basically remove microplastics from US water. Let me get a poll opinion here. We're not going to do an official poll, but drop the numbers. What do you think about that? How many official water plants, filtration water plants do we have in the United States of America? Somebody can Google this, but what do you guys think? Just I'm gonna Google it, but I'm just curious what you guys thinking. I mean, we have what, 300 plus million citizens. Everybody's supposed to consume a gallon of water a day, roughly. Plus, that's drinking, plus, other usage. So, how many filtration stations are in US? Water, how many water filtration? Okay. So, and I can, it's 148,000. So what that means that these people are assigning $1,000 per filtration one-time fee. Do you think it's going to filter anything? So this is a political gimmick. My estimation was that they're gonna need to have about $1.5 trillion to get anywhere. Because I actually happened to look this up. I looked up what it takes to change the filtration system to add additional components. And that is at least $2 to $5 million per station. So they need to multiply 150,000 by, let's say, conservatively 1 million. You do the math. So it is a political stance. I think it's all of this is similar to how Maha put out $100 million whole person grant saying that this is going to change completely how CMA works. No, it will not. This is a tiny, tiny amounts of money. It's all politicking. My prediction is that most of this money is going to somehow get split up between different, you know, fractions that are more related to the politics of this and the view of this. But I mean, there's grossly inadequate. Not even going to cover 1% of what needs to be done in terms of an actual changes in how we're getting our water filtered. But the point of it is serious. They basically acknowledging that entire water in this country is contaminated heavily with pharmaceuticals and microplastics. And so if you don't have a filtered water, if you don't have your own filter in home, my opinion, I very strongly recommend you to get one. And we've talked about which units to use. I don't believe that you must obtain reverse osmosis. And the reason for that has nothing to do with the cost. Actually, reverse osmosis units are not necessarily crazily expensive. It's the environmental reason. Most of the decent reverse osmosis units, for every gallon of water they purify, they waste 5 to 9 gallons of water additionally. So if you're drinking 1 gallon, it means you just wasted whatever number X of gallons into the sewer. And that to me is, I don't like that. And because I also believe that just a very high grade chemical filter and the mechanical filter is inadequate. And so what we use is we use a company called MultiPure, and I'm going to give you a link and also a discount code if anybody cares. So this is what we typically work. This is a very old company. They operate a little I don't know, almost like a mom and pop shop, but they've been around for a very long time. They're fully certified, so there's several certifications. I think there's two large water filtration unit certifications. You may want to ensure that whatever filter you're getting follows one of those certifications. So I think one is NSF. I don't know what it stands for. I don't remember. And then there's another one, but the NSF is more standard. So if you're getting that when you're buying it from another company, make sure at least NSF is there. That's the better one. The other one, I don't remember. This one is NSF certified. And so I put the link. They're different products. I mean, we use for the house of, we have with our friends who live in the basement, we have 6 people in the house and 2 small dogs. So we use this just the standard 1,000 gallon filter system that's sufficient, supposed to be per year. And then you change the cartridge once a year. And the cartridges are about $100. So you basically, the filtration unit is a startup cost of about $500. And after that, it's $100 a year. So it's still way, way cheaper if you're buying a bottled water, right? And of course, bottled water has its own problem because most of it comes in plastic. And even if they tell you that it's a BPA free, I wouldn't trust that. So, yeah, so Berkeley Gravity is great. That's one of my top recommendations. It has a problem, the big problem. It's completely non-usable for larger families when you have to use large volumes of water because it takes forever. You have to sit there and wait. So if we're, we may sometimes have 3, 4, 5 gallons of water used within a few minutes. It's unrealistic to have if you have a big family with a lot, and especially if you're cooking a lot. So that system and also it's very bulky, like takes space. But in some ways it's better than the multi-pure ones, which are flow filters. You attach it in between your drinking cup and the pipe that brings the water to. So you attach it somewhere in between, and then the water comes out through the filter and out. The gravity systems, it's basically Brita-like. They're just the Berkeley is like the best available Brita on the market. So you load it from the top, and then you wait for the water to by gravity dip through. The benefit of gravity filters, and because they filter slower, they're supposed to be in some ways better. The difference is so minute, it's completely irrelevant. You need to get whether you're going to get a gravity Berkeley, let's say, or the multi-pure, it's your personal practical preference. Both are perfectly fine. Okay, so Berkeley is much easier to use. Just imagine you have a big Brita sitting on your counter. That's what this is. And Berkeley's come in different sizes. Some of them are very large. They could be as big as, 2 gallons, I think is the largest, maybe even three. And then they could be smaller. They could be 1 gallon. But that means that if you have that 1 gallon and you need 2 gallons, you have to wait for the second gallon to filter, which may take 5 to 10 minutes. So I actually don't know since I've never used one day to day. So I don't know. Is that a hint that it's Chris's time? Janet has been quite obvious here. Um, okay, well, let's just take a couple more minutes for questions. I don't want to short sight the questions, but the other topic I have, we can do it next time. I have a vascular health topic, but it's flexible. So, oh, trees disappeared. Fair enough. Yeah, so Berkeley goes up to 6 gallons. Oh wow, that's huge. Okay, well that's gonna be massive if you have 6 gallons. It's gonna take half of your counter space. Just probably fine, if that's what you prefer. Oh, and I was gonna give you guys a discount code if if anybody is interested. I'll put that in. I'll put that in when Chris starts. So any other questions about anything else before we pass it on to Chris? Surprised you guys don't have any political questions. This is the group that always has all kinds of political opinions, where everybody's just like, so, well, we don't talk politics on this show. I don't talk politics on this channel. Doesn't mean you don't have to. Like, you can totally express your opinions. You're fully six of, freedom of speech. Can integrative cancer treatment substitute for? No, they cannot. And the reasons are twofold. So one is that most of the time, there's just not enough evidence to do that. Second of all, the point being is you're not going to truly establish an effective treatment unless you're super rich. Cancer care is profoundly expensive. And none of the integrative approaches for cancer are ever covered by any existing insurances. So this is the biggest problem. Even if, let's say, we demonstrate some benefit of something is more stronger than chemo and radiation, you don't have coverage for that. You're not going to be able to spend $500,000 on a particular treatment unless Bill Gates or something. But you've all seen what happened with the founder of Apple. So you don't want to do that for various reasons. The biggest reason is most of the time there's too much hype out there for different integrative treatments, and they're not true. They're just selling stuff. It's all financial interests, and the reality is usually grave. And so the miracles that we have seen at our clinic, all of them have been in combination of the standard of care with what we do, not instead of that. And I will be expressing this again and again strongly. Now, are there some standalone treatments that in some situations are effective? Absolutely. That would be true regarding everything, right? You may have a hypersensitive tumor and it's going to respond to specific treatment. The problem is, though, there's zero chance of predicting that. Like, you can't just look at something and say, okay, this is going to work. And people who think, oh, there's this different test that tells you which modalities are effective, those tests are highly inaccurate. And relying on them would be a really wrong approach. So unfortunately, there is no test that can sort of tell you, okay, you have this cancer. We done the test, and the test tells you now do this treatment. So that principle is kind of a wishful thinking. There are some ideas of how to utilize those tools effectively or efficiently, but they're not substituting for a typical approach where you have protocolized treatments for a given cancer, plus genetics, plus whatever else the assessments, plus how a person is expected to tolerate each treatment. Good question. I have so many opinions, I can't type them all. All right, that's fine. That's a choice. You don't have to write, you don't have to type any then. Um, by the way, if you see me posting political statement on a Facebook and you start putting comments, I will never respond to them. This has more to do with I've been once in a situation in my spiritual organization politically that was enough for me to realize whatever you say, there's always going to be upset people. Like it doesn't matter how neutral, positive your statement is, there are going to be people who are going to misread it and they're going to get pissed. So the sort of unfortunate result for me on any politics is I'm sharing what I think is important for people to see, but I don't have to put my opinion on it. So I think that's a really good place for us to segue to Chris's topic today. So Chris, I'm super excited about this. I know that this is something I want to plan for myself, green burial, and I've been already learning a little bit about it. So it's so cool that you're going to talk about this today. I may be the one asking all the questions at the end. Usually I don't get to do that, but I may actually use the moment and here. So thanks so much for being with us as usual.
It's a pleasure, Misha. It's an honor to be here. I'm delighted to be invited. I thank you. I thank Janet. I thank Stephanie, and especially thank Alyssa Parker, who's on the call, who introduced me to you. And I'm so grateful to her for doing that. I love working with you, Misha. So I'm going to talk today about green burials and things like that. But let me start by talking about how we conventionally dispose of bodies. We call this body disposition. It's an infelicitous phrase, but that's the words we use. Okay, so in the where we are now this year, roughly about 2.5 million people are going to die in this country, and about 60% of those will be flame cremated. I'm putting in that word flame before the word cremated to distinguish it from something I'll talk about in a moment, which is water cremation. So flame cremation is what we typically understand as cremation. It's where you incinerate the body. Okay, so many people will be flame cremated this year when they die, and the rest will be buried. Now, the way for the 95% of these is not good. Is not good because flame cremation, just normal cremation, where you incinerate the body at 1700 degrees Fahrenheit, is very polluting. It's very carbon intensive. I have a crematory just about a mile from my house at Pumphrey Funeral Home, and you know, mercury is going into the air from people's tooth fillings. It's not good. There's some small evidence from England that people who live near crematories have more birth defects and more stillbirth, things like that. So there's some suggested evidence that living close to a crematory is not good for your health. Okay, but okay, but the main thing with fire cremation is it's very carbon intensive. It's about the equivalent of driving 500 miles in your car. So it's carbon intensive and is polluting. Okay, now the other way is conventional burial. This is where you put the body in a heavy casket with steel handles and velvet inside it and so on. And then you put that down 6 feet into a vault, a concrete vault, VAULT, a concrete vault. And so the reason you do this is because funeral planners, funeral directors want you to think that somehow the body is being protected from the earth. This is ridiculous, but that's the this is so you, but putting a coffin deep down into a cement vault is incredibly wasteful. It's incredibly polluting. It's incredibly resource intensive because all that concrete, all the embalming fuels, the carcinogens, the formaldehyde. Back in Lincoln's day, we used arsenic, but now we use formaldehyde. But it's still carcinogenic. And one reason we know it's not good is because the death rates and cancer rates around embalmers in this country is high. So it's not good. These chemicals are very, and so if you bury an embalmed body, it will eventually leach the embalming fuels. These dangerous poisonous fuels will leak out. Anyway, the point is that conventional burial, where you embalm the body. Embalming, for those of you, you know what that is. That embalming is where you take out the liquids and gas from the body and replace it with these preservatives, very poisonous preservatives. Okay, it's distinguished, by the way, from cosmetology, where you prettify the face with lipstick and hair and makeup and make the face look like the person is just sleeping. That's different. Where you set the features. That's different from embalming. But okay, let's put that aside. The basic point I want to make is that these conventional ways of body disposition, conventional burial, and fire cremation, are not good. They are polluting. If you care about climate change, it's not good. If you've lived a life where as I have, with devoted to conservation, as Alyssa has, devoted to conservation and fighting climate disruption, then disposing of your body with these two ways, cremation and burial, the conventional burial, are not good. Okay, so let's move on. What are there? Are there alternatives? What else can one do? Okay, so the first thing is green burial, okay, or natural earth burial. Now, my wife, Gail, we've been married over 50 years. I'm 78, she's 75. I have heart disease, I have cancer, prostate cancer. I'm going to die soon, and I'm going to be buried. My wife and I will be buried at in Reflection Park. This is 40 acres of wild land just outside Silver Spring. It's along with Serenity Ridge in Baltimore. It's the second natural burial ground in Maryland. Okay, so we'll be buried there. And what will happen is that they'll take my body, they'll wrap it in a shroud, or they'll put it in a bamboo or simple wooden biodegradable box. That's all. No embalming, nothing. Bury it down 3.5 feet where the microbial activity is most intense, and where it's deep enough that animals can never dig it up. And that's it. It's very simple. This is how we disposed of bodies for eons before the Civil War. Somebody would die, their body would be laid out in the parlor. They might be washed. They might have a few new clothes put on them, but they would basically, neighbors would come by and mourn, and they'd be grieving and crying, whatever. And then the body would be put in a simple wooden casket, simple wooden coffin, and taken out and buried in the family's land or in a local churchyard or something like that. Very simple, very unpolluting. There's no carbon releases, anything like that. Very simple. And it was done like that for eons. And then the Civil War happened. 1861, 1865, the Civil War. Soldiers were killed as we know, 750 more than 1,000 people killed. And the soldiers if they weren't dismembered and decimated by bullets or cannon fire, if they were still, they would be. Families wanted them home. How could they get them home? They had to be preserved. They had to be embalmed. And that's where embalming came from. It didn't exist before. And then it came along. And that became the basis of the funeral industry. And you all know, I'm sure many of you have read the famous book by Jessica Mitford, The American Way of Death, a very funny, witty book. She wrote it in 66. It came out again. She rewrote it again. It came out again in 1996, just before she died. And in this book, she takes the fuel industry to task for being predatory, for duping people, for abusing people, for taking advantage of grieving people and overcharging them for embalming, for burial, for caskets, for all that stuff. She accused the funeral industry accurately of being exploitive, of taking advantage of their position and exploiting people who are grieving and overcharging them. Okay, so going back now to green. Oh, and just to finish that story, then of course, so the Civil War had a big effect on the informing and creating the funeral industry because embalming was the basis of it. And then, of course, Lincoln died, was assassinated in 1865, as you all know, and his body was taken on that 12-day train ride from D.C. Round through New York, then to Springfield, and his body obviously had to be preserved, and it was embalmed, and this again helped to make embalming sort of more popular or more well known because Lincoln used it. They had a real tough time stopping his body sort of falling apart before he got to Springfield, but that's another story. Okay, so back to natural earth burial, the green burial. So my wife and I are going to be buried in Reflection Park. Very simple. It's lovely. It's how we buried people for years. So green burial is really just another word for how we've done it for centuries. Okay, so that's green burial. Let's talk now about two other ways which are better, greener than. And by the way, all these three new methods that I'm going to tell you about, green burial and then alkaline hydrolysis and then natural organic reduction, those three methods of disposing of bodies are also, and this is amazing, they are economically competitive. I mean, the average cost of a funeral in this country costs $12,000 to $14,000. Natural organic reduction cost is about 7,000. Alkaline hydrolysis is roughly the same. Green burial, Reflection Park cost about $5,000 or $6,000. Serenity Ridge up in Baltimore, the same. So not only are these better environmentally, but they are better for the consumer economically. Okay, so let's talk about them. So we've talked about green burial. Let's talk about the second one, which is alkaline hydrolysis. Alkaline hydrolysis, also called water cremation or aquamation. All these terms mean the same. And by the way, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who was a great fighter against anthropocentric climate disruption, used alkaline hydrolysis to dispose of his bodies because it was he thought, and rightly, environmentally responsible. What happens is you take the body, you put this alkaline hydrolysis, you take the body, you put it in a stainless steel chamber, you surround it by water, um, with 5% lye, Lye, 5% lye, and over 14 to 16 hours, it decomposes. You're just left with a few bones, and then you use, as you do with fire cremation, you use a cremulator to crush the bones, and you hand back to the grieving family the ashes. Water cremation or alkaline hydrolysis is very gentle, far less polluting, far less energy intensive than fire cremation. So I highly recommend it. Now, legal in about last time I looked, about 25 states. We just made it legalized it in Maryland, where I live in Maryland. And Westmore signed. I lobbied for it. Westmore signed the legislation, and facilities are now being built here. But if those of you who live in DC, you can go to just Google, just ask, are there any alkaline hydrolysis facilities in DC? I think the answer is no, but there are some nearby. So you can just ask where are the nearest ones. I think there's one in North Carolina. Okay, so this is alkaline hydrolysis, a very good way of disposing of bodies. I recommend it. I recommend you look into it and see if that's an option for you. Now, before I come to the third way, which is reduction of human. Uh, uh, Please go to my website because there are lots of free handouts there on this topic. Janet, would you please be kind enough to put my site in the chat? It is www.chrispalmer.com. It's my name, Chris Palmer, online.com. Okay, Janet, www.chrispalmeronline.com. So go there, help yourself. Everything I do is pro bono. There are about 30 different handouts on green, burial, all sorts of subjects to do with death and dying. Help yourselves. Help yourselves. Yeah, thank you, Janet. Thank you so much. So go there and just help yourselves to anything you want. It's all there for you to take as you want. Um, and also, oh, Janet, while I've got you there, would you please put my email address in on the chat? Because it's Christopher dot N dot Palmer at gmail.com. Christopher.n for Neil dot Palmer at gmail.com. I'm giving you my email address because this is my book, which Janet mentioned, Achieving a Good Death. A practical guide to the end of life. It has a lot of stuff all about death, including living well to die well, which Misha mentioned. But it's got a whole chapter on funeral planning, on green burial, on alkaline hydrolysis, all these subjects we're talking about this morning, this afternoon. And the reason I'm giving you my email address, if you write to me, just say send PDF. I will send you a PDF as a gift. I'll send you a PDF of the book free of charge, just as a gift. So feel free, just send me a note. All you need to say is send PDF. That's all you need to say. Send PDF, and I will send you a PDF of the book so you can read stuff. By the all the proceeds from my books go to fund student scholarships at American University, where I was a professor for 14 years. So everything I do is pro bono. Okay, so let's go now it's 2:36. Let's now go to the third option. We've talked about green burial or natural earth burial. We've talked about alkaline hydrolysis or water cremation. Now let's talk about another very good way of disposing of bodies, natural organic reduction, NOR, or human composting. This was pioneered by Katrina Spade, a very good person, Katrina Spade, out on the West Coast in Washington. It's now spreading across the country. Last time I looked, about 23 states had made it legal, made it lawful, including Maryland. Again, I lobbied on that, and Westmore signed the legislation. Is now legal. So facilities are now being built in Maryland. But again, you can go to Google and where are the near. I live in DC. Where are the nearest human composting sites, please? And you'll quickly find them. But what is it? Okay, so what is it? So human composting is where you take the body, you put it in a stainless steel capsule, and you surround it with alfalfa and wood chips and straw. And over 4 to 6 weeks, it decomposes. It converts into nutrient rich soil. And a lot of it, a square yard, 3 feet by 3 feet, a square yard. It weighs 600 pounds. And what do you do with that? Well, you can put it under trees. You can put it under rose bushes. You can put it in a cemetery. You can give it to a conservation group who will use it under trees. It's very rich, nutritious soil. So that's what you do with it. It's very green. Not as green as green burial itself, but very green compared to flame cremation or conventional burial. It's very beautiful. I mean, it's done in, you can have a very wonderful sacred time around the goodbyes to the person. It's just a wonderful thing. So I hope that'll spread. I hope in 10 years' time, instead of people just routinely saying, I want to be cremated, just saying it without even thinking about it, I hope the default position will not be, I'd like to be cremated, fry cremated, but I'd like to have a green burial or have alkaline hydrolysis like Desmond Tutu, or I'd like to be composted and convert my body into rich, fertile soil. So, okay, it is 2:30. Question. I'll take uh, love to go back. Well, so Linda Blazer, Linda, I love this. Well,
Is it me or is Chris freezing?
He's freezing.
He's
He's been
freezing.
having a buffering problem on and off.
Okay, I thought it was me for a second. Oh, now we lost him. So there was a really good question while we're waiting for him to come back. There was a very good question. Well, how could this be that in the stainless steel? So the way this is I think they use special enzymes in the metal chamber, and then the greens and the wood chips create the right gas and right environment for the microbes and for the actual process. So it's a you guys should if you're interested you Chris, I think your internet went kaput. So we lost you there for a bit.
Yeah, you've been having buffering problems on and off, but this last one you went away.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a bummer because I have tons of questions for him. I'm gonna start typing questions and see what happens.
Yeah.
but Janet, could you hear? When did my presentation
Now
come?
now you're back. But
Yeah.
before
We
that
heard the
we
whole
lost
entire
you.
presentation, and
Good.
then there at the very end we lost you.
Okay, gosh, I'm so sorry. Now let me go back quickly. I want to listen to it's 2:41. I want to get to Misha's questions, but let me first answer these
Yeah.
questions here. So Linda Blazer, sounds as though the natural burial you're describing is the same as a simple traditional Jewish burial. Absolutely correct, Linda. Absolutely correct. Bury in simple wooden becks, no metal, and within 24 hours. Generally, the 24 hours doesn't apply, but I'm with you. And no concrete, no concretion, dust to dust. Are they similar? Yes. Linda, very similar. Thank you for saying that. Jennifer Lyman says, my parents read Jessica Mitford and joined a funeral cooperative. Good. I think it had gone under, whoops, by the time they died and they were cremated, unfortunately. But do cooperative funeral organizations exist as far as you know? Yes. There's something called the FCA. I served on the board for it for a long time. FCA, Funeral Consumers Association, and you should join it. And they have chapters all over the country, and they do price surveys to see where the most economic funeral homes are. It's amazing the difference of price. Oh my gosh, Gawlers. Gawlers, you may know Gawlers, Gawler apostrophe, Gawlers and Sons. Their minimum price is $10,000. $10,000. Pumphrey up here in Bethesda, 3,000. They're just a few miles apart. Like massive differences. So people should check out funeral homes for their pricing. But so yes, you can join. They generally don't like the FCAME, where I'm also on the board for the Funeral Association for Maryland Environs. Doesn't actually we don't actually give it saves consumers money, but some do. Some do. Okay, thank you, Elizabeth Wright. The concept exists in Seattle, Washington. My older sister was part of a funeral co-op and processed in 2013 after her death. Okay, don't quite know what the word process means there, but Elizabeth, thank you for sharing. There's my thanks, Janet, for my putting up my website for people to have. I warehouse Chris's handouts, including his book. Here, okay, good. Okay, Cecile Richter, email address requires at the above. Okay, okay. Chris's email, Christopher.Palmer. Yes, there's my email. By the way, some of you may have questions which are too private to raise in this public conversation. Feel free to write to me privately and ask for my advice. Everything I do is pro bono, but feel free to write to me if you need advice or help on something. Elizabeth Wright, for years, Sweden has required silver amalgam fillings removed prior to cremation. How interesting. I didn't know that. Elizabeth, thank you so much for sharing that. Janet, oh yeah, that's okay. Good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And then let's see. Okay, now here's Misha's first question. Are there laws that regulate where a person can be buried? For example, can I be buried on my own land? Okay, so Misha, it's a very good question. There are laws. There are laws that regulate where you can be buried, and you cannot be buried on your own land without really researching it and getting permission, because the authorities, our government, we don't want uh, uh, poisons coming out of your body, and toxifying the water levels, the water in the land, and so on. So you can't just take a body and bury it on your in your backyard. No, you have to check it out very carefully. You can go to the Attorney General's office for your state and ask. There are rules about this. I serve on the Office of Cemetery Affairs in Maryland. We license all the cemeteries. In fact, I helped to get licensed for Serenity Ridge and of Reflection Park, and it's complicated. You can't just bury bodies everywhere. So there are laws, and be very attentive to those. Elva says Panorama Natural Burial is north outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. I've not heard of that one, but that's great, Elva. Panorama. Okay, that's wonderful. Look into that. It's outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. So that's for those who live in Virginia. That's not too far. How much does stainless steel? Yes. So Salome Gabri Exiabia says, how much do stainless containers cost? And I don't know. I'd have to look that up. But I think it's typically what you're talking about. Well, you don't have to buy them, because when I've been talking about stainless steel containers, I'm talking about that for natural gas reduction and for aquamation. And you don't need to buy them. They're in the facility. You take the body to a facility. You don't do these things in your backyard or in your parlor. The aquamation and natural gas are done in industrial facilities. Beautiful, very beautifully decorated and so on. But so you don't need to buy one. If the question, Salome, if you're really asking what does a casket cost, that can be very cheap. You can make a casket out of cardboard. You can make a casket out of bamboo, costing a few $100s. I noticed that Trump, when he buried one of his wives, he spent $120,000 on the casket. It was made of gold, so it was absolutely wasteful and ridiculous. But you can spend a lot on containers. I'm not sure what was behind your question, but that. And now Misha has another question. Does this apply to pets as well? No. Well, now I'm sure pets are buried in all kinds of places. Yes. It's just the Office of Cemetery Affairs in Maryland, where I work, work on the board. We've just been given OCO has just been given responsibility for pets. So I think there's more regulations coming along. But in the past, you are quite right. You could bury a dog in your backyard down 3 feet, and no one would complain. It was just done. Pets, parents bury mice and pets and pet mice, all the time in their backyards, and no one worries about it. But there are rules about pets. I mean, people come to us often in the Office of Cemetery Affairs and say, "I want to be buried with my dog. Can I do that?" And it's not easy. I mean, it's not that you have to actually look into that and get permission. Sheila asks, what, by the way, it's 2:48, so we're running low on time. Sheila says, what can be the psychological effects on family using these untraditional treatments? So Sheila, what a good question. What a thoughtful question. And the impact often is very positive. At first, when mum is dying, she says, I want to have buried naturally in a natural burial, or I want to have my body composted, or I want to have aquamation, water cremation. Families will say, what's that, mum? What are you talking about? Why wouldn't you just be cremated like dad was? What are you talking about? But as they talk about it, as they learn about it, as they see the gentleness of it, as they see the environmental benefits of it, as they see the financial savings from it, the families often come around and they see the beauty, the profound beauty of hand carrying mum in a bamboo into Reflection Park in these beautiful, beautiful lands, wild lands, burying in a hole in the ground, 3.5 feet down, surrounded by beautiful trees and flowers. Their reaction then is, well, I'm so glad mum thought of that, and she's having the burial she wanted. So Sheila, I hope I've helped with that. I'm sure that you will find a small number of family members who say, "Oh my God, don't do that," but it's just it's a matter of education. Okay. And Linda, do you know if any religious groups have taken positions on methods 2 and 3? Yes, the Roman Catholic Church. My wife is Roman Catholic. And we've been married over 50 years. The Roman Catholic Church is against these new methods. They're trying to look at green burial because that's been done for years. So I think they're more accepting of that. But when it comes to human composting, and especially human composting, which they view very negative. They think it doesn't treat the body with enough respect, and so they are opposed to it. Water cremation, they're a bit more accepting of it. But religious groups, have are very tend to be negative on this, and it's a problem. It's a problem, as they're negative on medical aid in dying, and very other progressive things, and so Roman Catholic Church does a lot of good things. They do a lot of good things, but on these issues, they tend to be against people having autonomy over their own body. So it's okay, and then all right, and then all right. So Sheila has a hand up. Sheila, hi Sheila, please go right ahead. It's 2:51, by the way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Sheila. You have to unmute yourself. Janet, could you unmute her? Maybe she can't do it herself.
Yes, yes, yes. Let me get to that.
Thank you. By the way, this is a great while. We're waiting for Sheila to come on. Okay, Sheila, I'll come to you in just 1 second. Let me just say that these are great questions, and it's so lovely for I give a lot of talks, and it's so lovely for speakers like me when you have an engaged audience, an audience that cares and asks good questions. I just want you to know how much I appreciate all of you being there today. Sheila, your question. Go ahead, please.
I wasn't able to unmute, but I am now. What I'm a little concerned about is unless you have a real specific talk with family about some of these, even in general about your burial, because I've seen the ashes in people's closets and in the urn all over. They don't get distributed. And also with the question of burying on your land, say your land gets sold and you have bodies on the land and all of that. So there has to be a way to figure out, unless you're going to keep that land forever in the family, to keep
Yeah,
aware.
yeah,
So I think some of these things, when people leave notes and say, well, this is what I want to have done, and they have not told the family
yeah.
how this is going to work.
Right. So Sheila,
They're
yeah, Sheila, thank you so much for your question. Did you finish your question?
basically um, devastating to some extent because you don't get closure. You
Right.
still ash.
Okay. So Sheila, thank you. It's 2:52. Do you want to finish your question very quickly?
No, I'm done.
Okay, great. So Sheila, thank you so much for that question. And this brings me to a broader question, which is the one of families talking about death and dying before the end. The worst time to talk about this is when the person's in the ICU with a ventilator on and intubated and can't talk. No, talk early. How do you do this? How do you introduce these? Because people don't like to talk about death and dying. And so one way I recommend to people is use stories. Think about how Uncle Jack died, and you say to your mom, you remember how Uncle Jack died? He was in the ICU with tubes everywhere. Do you want that, or do you not want that? And then instead of the mother then saying, as they normally do, oh, I don't want to talk about that. Don't talk about death and dying. They might say, oh, Uncle Jack, oh yes, that wasn't good, was it? I don't think I want that to happen to me. And same with body disposition. You can ask them. So Sheila, I'm grateful to you for allowing me to make this point to answer your question, and that is that people need to talk about this. How do you want to be buried? Where would you like to be buried? And put it in writing so that the family is at ease and can give their mum and dad, whoever's dying, what they want. Sheila, thank you so much for that question. Misha, do you have more questions?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of questions, but I
Please
think
go
we're
ahead.
gonna have to, no, we're
Oh,
running out of time. It's
okay.
2:55. We have to do a little practice. It's just a rule.
Okay, good. Well, I will
So
say,
I think, Chris, you're gonna have to come back. I think this needs a second session because
sure.
Yeah,
my
this definitely needs
questions,
a part two.
yeah, it definitely needs part two. I mean,
I would be
I have a
delighted.
half a dozen of questions
Yeah,
that are
Misha, I'd be
pragmatic.
delighted. Misha, I'd be delighted to do that. So
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I'm going to go, but thanks everybody. Thanks for having me. Misha, thank you so much. Janet, Alyssa, Stephanie, thank you so much. Talk to you
Thank
soon,
you,
everybody.
Chris.
Bye-bye. Sure. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
So let's do 5 minutes, and we're going to do a practice which I think is poetically very funny and consistent with the topic. So we're going to do box breathing. So you can imagine yourself being boxed into whatever your final funeral arrangements are. Um, uh, I have just 30 seconds of context. I did the Sufia school for 4 years. It was basically like in a Suluk Academy. It's basically a divinity school when I was in residency. And we spent 6 months on practicing death and dying, like practicing. So there were episodes where I was once buried under the ground for 2 hours naked with a little breathing tube to come outside, and everything else you're just in there 3 feet under with bugs crawling on you and worms and whatnot. Well, you're in just in underwear, and I tell you, it's an interesting experience. It I think it helped me over the years to start at least looking into this topic and not being afraid of it anymore, and just say the more we think about this, the more we spend time. So let's actually literally practice this for a couple of minutes during the breath. So the reason I picked the box breathing is just a very balanced breath. You don't have to do anything specific. If you don't want to count and you just want to imagine yourself that final transition during the breath, that's fine. Otherwise, you can just close your eyes and center yourself, find a comfortable position. If you need to lay down, go for it. It's perfectly fine. And then the box breathing goes where inhale, hold, exhale, hold are all the same. So let's try 5 counts. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, hold. And we're just going to continue that for, 5 minutes or so, whatever time we have. And I'm going to count a couple of times my own count, but you can go your own pace. So let's take a deep breath together and begin. Inhale, exhale, and begin. Inhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. And continue. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now continue on your own pace for 3 more minutes. Gradually begin to come back. If you specifically have any sensations right now, if this whole conversation triggered something, if you feel you're not, you didn't process all this very well, hold that. Let us know. I think we definitely need another part of this. I do think it's, I think we'll have to face this. So I think it's a good practice to do. Whenever next time, if I'm teaching, I may come back to something like this so that we do another practice around the same topic. Um, so, okay, so Linda, you're confusing 478 with box breathing. Okay. So 478 is where the exhalation is twice the inhalation. 478 is a parasympathetic breath. Box breathing is supposed to be the balanced breath. It's not supposed to be sympathetic or parasympathetic. So on purpose. I didn't feel that this conversation was stressful. I mean, actually, if anything, this conversation is very balancing for me, believe it or not. So that's why I chose a balanced breath rather than anti-stress breath that I would do after, say, stressful day or being thrown into something quite stressful. So yeah, 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 yeah. I'm same way, Jennifer, like you are. I'm still debating, how I want to, the most economical versus most green versus, etc. So there are really good ways of thinking about this. Okay, so next week we'll have Mia Goff, our therapy intern. She was with us before, so it'd be wonderful. I do want to remind everybody that please do subscribe to the Beating Heart Moments with Fred every Monday. He says hello. I just talked to him. And we are going to start coordinating Mondays and Fridays a bit. So the topic that starts on Monday will sort of merge into Friday. We're going to start doing this very soon in a bit more organized fashion. That's just part of our continuous attempt at creating sense of coherence between the offerings and also, I mean, I looked at this as a Fred's being our kind of a spiritual guide here, and so he's going to help us to establish this flow. All right, we will see everybody next week. Enjoy the beautiful weather, and see you soon.